That's why I think it's CSLR. I really disagree, but a part of me as a business owner, I'm like, well, the higher barriers to entry I think are really bad for this industry, and I think is really bad for consumers. I think it's bad for everyone. But me paying 40 grand to make it a higher barrier entry so I've got less competition from the market is actually a good thing. And so that's why I think sometimes there can be a conflict with like bigger businesses going, do we really want to fight for this? Like, yes, it's a bill we pay, but it entrenches our position as a leader in this space. And, you know, talking about a few other industry issues when it comes to insurance and stuff. And I know there are some leaders in our space who are like, we want something to change because we think it's bad for our clients. But as a business, we don't want it to change. The harder it is to get insurance advice, if you're a market leader, the better it is. And I'm out there just going like, I agree, and I am selfish as well, but can we just stop screwing everyone over? Like, can we just make a better industry? Hey there, welcome to the My Risk Advisor podcast. This is the first recording for 2025. And today I got a special guest, one of our team at Skye Wealth. We've got Kathleen Dean. How are you going?
I'm good.
Good.
How are you going?
Great. The reason we're recording this is because we want to talk about the topic of cost for having an advisor. So compensation scheme of last resort is big topic, hot topic at the moment in terms of what is it going to look like, how much is it going to cost. And I thought it'd be a good discussion for us to talk about what is the cost overall to have an advisor in a business. Because sometimes, as I was saying before we hit record, sometimes a business may be talking about the cost to have an advisor as a way to kind of put the burden on the advisor and an employee advisor. We've tried not to do that at Skye, and you can be as candid as possible and tell your experience. But there also needs to be a reasonable discussion around what is the cost. The other reason I was thinking about doing this was that I have seen a bit of stuff recently about how it's imperative for the profession and businesses to keep raising up and growing young advisors into the industry, and how that's so important to the profession, which I fundamentally believe it is, and it's something that we invest a lot in at Skye. But it's also flipping the coin to go, well, what is the actual cost to a business to do these things? And also like, how long does it take an advisor to be productive in their role in terms of like for a business to break even? So the reason I'm bringing you on is to ask you about like your understanding of some of these things, and then just talk candidly about, you know, what it's like. Recognizing that I am ultimately your boss as well. So, but I want you to be as candid as possible. So the first thing I want to talk about is compensation scheme of last resort. What's your understanding of what it is?
Yeah, so CSLR for short, because I don't think anyone really refers to it by the full name most of the time, and I had to look up being like, what is this thing? But it's essentially a compensation scheme for clients that have received financial advice that has gone wrong and put them in a worse off position, and it's compensating them for the actions of previous financial advisors, but the cost of it is being footed by all the existing financial advisors. So all the existing advisors are essentially paying for the bad advice for a few bad eggs previously. Yeah. So two of the big companies that are splashed around is Dixon Advisory, and the other one is United Global Capital. Because the actual scheme is kind of ever rolling, so the ability for consumers to go to compensation scheme of last resort and CSLR, and then get compensated, but the bill for those compensations comes in every year, and then that gets levied onto the advisors, whoever's left. Originally, there is technically a $20 million sector cap, and the government, my understanding, the government needs to, basically have a special levy over and above that cap. There's kind of this tension. Governments don't want to pay the fee, which is fair enough. And so it's going to be borne on the sector. So the other day they talked about, over $70 million for compensation for the advice sector. Now, United Global Capital and Dixon, realistically, they were failed funds. Their clients lost money because of the funds management business lost money, and it was tied back to advice because it was, inappropriate advice because the advisors inappropriately recommended their clients move their funds there, and then they lost money because of it. I would call that vertical integration. That shouldn't happen, but that's okay. It seems like a conflict of interest.
Yeah, it is, but that's okay. We're allowed that type of conflict still, but that's for another point. But the compensation scheme bill is if they pass the full amount on based on today's advisors in the market, it's just over $4,500 per advisor.
Yeah, and our advisor numbers have also shrunk in the last few years because of the whole ramifications of the Royal Commission and FASIA requirement.
Yeah. I mean, that's another big issue. This compensation scheme came in and was kind of assessed with going, well, it's a $20 million cap, but there's like 28,000 advisors when they brought in this CSLR kind of legislation. And so they were like, look, that's fairly reasonable. It's only a few $100s per advisor, happy days.
Yeah.
Now, today, it's obviously we've got 15,500 advisors in the market and the bill is not a $20 million cap. It's potentially $70+ million. So if it does go through and everything gets passed back to the advisor sector, it's $4,500 per advisor. So you're costing me $4,500. No, I'm just kidding. But in reality, in our business, we've got 9 authorised reps. Yes. 3 of them are professional year, so it's going to cost us $40,000. Now, my next question for you is, and I do want it to be a broader discussion about the cost of advice. Are you aware and do you know how much ASIC levies are to the licensees?
No, I wouldn't say I would know.
Do you have any idea? Give me a number. How much does it cost? Because there's
per advisor?
Well, there's a AFSL cost.
Yep.
But if you've got 100 advisors or one advisor, it's the same flat cost.
Okay.
And then a per advisor cost on top of that. Do you know how much that is per advisor?
I'm going to just throw out 3,000.
3,000?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe that's too much.
It's not that much. Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, it's not far. It's like $2,613 or something like that.
Okay, I was close.
So yeah, not far off.
Yeah.
So, with this CSLR cost, like that ASIC levy is kind of fairly new as well and has been increasing. Now, again, good lobbying from our association has kept that bill to a more reasonable level because ASIC's cost to regulate the industry has increased over and above what they're charging us. So thanks, ASIC, for not giving us the full bill, but do your job better so we don't have a CSLR bill, but that's okay. So it means that, I looked at it the other day, just those 2 fees alone, if CSLR comes in, it's over $7,000 per advisor, just in authorising them. And so next question I have for you is the next bill we have. Now, this isn't a per advisor bill, but it's a legitimate bill that, we're self-licensed, so we don't have it as a per advisor cost.
Okay.
But what's our professional indemnity cost?
20,000?
Oh, close.
Close?
For us, it's 27,000.
Oh, okay.
For last year, and we're just about to pay the bill again. Like, we haven't gotten the cost for this new year, but I'm expecting that to be minimum $40,000.
Does it go up with how many advisors you have? Because it's more.
It's kind of it's an insurance that a lot of it is like, what's your revenue? They do link it to revenue because that's kind of their way of associating risk, which I don't truly understand. Like, if you've got $1 million worth of revenue and you got 10 clients paying you $10,000, is that as much risk as 100 clients paying you $1,000? I actually don't know.
Yeah, true.
But for us, it's good that it's not a per client basis because we insurance only. It's a lot of clients, small revenue per client. But yeah, so it's 27 grand we paid last year. Yeah. And the reason why I'm asking you is because I want to know if I've communicated it to you guys.
No.
Yeah, which is good. I mean, I've never, as I said, I've never wanted to kind of be like, guys, like, this is the cost to have you authorised. There has been conversations about, how do we build up the profession? It's really imperative that businesses do that. But majority of advice businesses are small businesses.
Yeah.
So a small business to bring on an advisor, to pay an advisor salary and pay CSLR and to pay, the ASIC levy and to pay, PI that is associated towards those advisors. Yeah. It's, 10 grand. You think about just in those 3 alone per advisor. Yeah. In fact, if our PI goes up to what I suspect it to be, it's more than that. It's like, 12 grand per advisor. Yeah. And that's kind of an interesting thing. Like, how does that profession continue to grow if small businesses have to fund that? Exactly. And it's not me. I don't take money out of my mortgage to pay those bills. Our clients have to pay it.
Exactly. That's increasing the cost of them, and that's kind of a thing that I've found to be kind of an annoying thing about the financial advice profession, in that it seems that it's leaning more and more towards only people that can afford to spend $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 on a statement of advice can actually get advice. And it's like, what about everybody else that can't afford that? They just get left behind. So, and the fact that it's just increasing the costs for an advisor to be employed, it means it's just that less clients can actually receive advice, because it's just they have to increase their fees because otherwise they can't be profitable. So yeah, it's a concern to me.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's, we don't have the banks, we don't have the big institutions anymore. And I've never worked for a big institution. I never wanted to. I was pretty high and mighty about it all.
Me too.
But now they're no longer here. It's like, there's many things in my life where I've had strong opinions and now recognize that maybe life is a little bit more grey than it ever used to be. Everything used to be very black and white when I was younger. But now it's like, okay, I can see the benefit of a big institution. Yes, their products subsidise their advice. That created a whole bunch of issues, that advice is no longer subsidised by products. So, on the whole, it's not subsidised by products. Obviously as insurance advisors, we get paid from products, but there is no other profit centre in our business. We're not actually, a product manufacturer. But I do kind of think, well, if there are no institutions in the market anymore, nothing of significance, even the biggest AMP, the biggest licensee for many, many years is now just been sold to another, kind of conglomerate of dealer groups. So, so I think that's really kind of concerning. How do we actually grow if there's no big instos being able to bring through grads and recruit grads and then them go out and either start their own business or whatever? I think that's concerning. The other thing I think about, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, is selfishly, this CSLR bill, as a business that has reached a certain scale where we can afford it, we're not going broke. We're not laying anyone off. We're not, getting rid of an advisor because of this bill, even though it is like 40 grand is a lot of money. I'd love not to pay it because we can support our clients more. We can invest in our business more. But we're at a certain scale where at the end of the day, it's annoying. I'll get grumpy about it and it's not good. But selfishly, on another level, I'm also okay with it from if I'm putting a very pragmatic hat on as a business owner, I know our advisors are less likely to go out on their own and start their own business, which is good for me because we need employed advisors. And so obviously I hate CSLR and I think that is a bad thing. I want the profession to be able to grow and have people who are entrepreneurial and go out on their own and go and start their own businesses. But I know it's harder. It's so much harder to do it now. Is that something that I know we've talked about it in the past about whether you want to go out on your own, but is that something, I'll ask you again, is that something that you've considered doing, going out on your own? And does any of the things that's happened over the last few years come into your equation at all?
I've never really been interested in going out on my own. I've always felt that I would just want to find a good business to stay with for the long term.
And you're still searching for that good business, so... I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
I think I found it. But I'm just saying, I guess the hesitations I've had about going out on my own previously have been it's a lot of work. You need to put in a lot of efforts, work weekends, you need to build up your clients, things like that. But I think with these added costs on top, I don't even know how people are still doing that nowadays. Just how are they affording this unless they've got help from their parents or something? Like, you can't just come out of high school and be like, I'm going to be a financial advisor. It's not that simple anymore. So it's...
And so for yourself personally, I know, as I said, we've talked about it before. It's not something you've gone, I really want to go out on my own and do that.
Yeah.
But people, colleagues in this business or in other, in the profession, have you thought about how it would impact them? Do you think it will have a significant impact on businesses starting because of these extra costs?
Yeah, definitely. How do they even afford to start if they're already having to pay for the CSLR just for themselves, even just for themselves starting off, it's a lot of money. Yeah, it's just another hurdle to be able to.
Yeah, and I mean, at Skye, again, we're fortunate. We're self-licensed. So like dealer groups are another cost that we don't have to,
Don't have that anymore.
we've got the cost of managing a license and, there is cost, but it's cheaper to be candid. It is cheaper to be self-licensed. Now, again, you take on more risk and, whatever, there's checks and balances and all this jazz. But like, if you're going out on your own for the first time, my opinion is you shouldn't ever go self-licensed straight away. That's a dumb decision. If that's my opinion. And so you've got that dealer group cost, and dealer group costs are wild. I've been speaking to people who have gone out on their own and doing stuff, and it's like you're talking 50, 60 grand, 70 grand a year just to open your doors. And I was talking to someone the other day, and they're like, they got a real big discount because they had a prior relationship. They'd been self-employed, licensed through this dealer group, and then, sold and then back into advice. And, but even, this person who's just started their business, they're like, I'm fortunate I was able to sell my previous business, so I've got the capital to lose a whole bunch of money for a few years. It's like,
they have to pretty much start off losing money, and it takes a while for them to start breaking even.
I just think about it like the cost to start your own business and to replace your salary, if CSLR, ASIC levies, like just that alone, like those costs is 10 grand, including PI. But again, if you're with a licensee, especially if they've had any PI issues in the past, then their premiums are going to be more. And so it could even be much greater than that. I think when we were with our last licensee, the PI was more than what we're paying now, like on a per advisor basis. So a lot of things have come down because we're self-licensed and we're not kind of grouped with a whole bunch of other advisors and a whole bunch of other complexities about that, why our PI is more affordable. But you're talking about like 15 grand just to start, plus 50 grand in dealer fees, plus your salary, plus when people think about revenue, you also got to think about, well, there's GST on that, so you got to you got to gross all of that up. You've got to be coming out the gates on earning 250, 300 grand a year just to kind of break even personally, which is rough. And so that's why I think of CSLR. I really disagree, but a part of me as a business owner, I'm like, well, the higher barriers to entry, I think, are really bad for this industry, and I think is really bad for consumers. I think it's bad for everyone.
Yes.
But me paying 40 grand to make it a higher barrier to entry, so I've got less competition from the market, is actually a good thing.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think sometimes there can be a conflict with like bigger businesses or bigger licensees going, or licensees are a different thing, but bigger businesses going, do we really want to fight for this? Like, yes, it's a bill we pay, but it entrenches our position as a leader in this space. And I'm going on plenty of tangents, but like, talking about a few other industry issues when it comes to insurance and stuff. And I know there are some leaders in our space who are like, we want something to change because we think it's bad for our clients, but as a business, we don't want it to change.
Yeah.
The harder it is to get insurance advice, if you're a market leader, the better it is. And I'm out there just going like, I agree, and I am selfish as well, but can we just stop screwing everyone over? Like, can we just make a better industry?
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be interested to see the future as to go, how much do advisors, like how many people are starting businesses? Like when you think about your networks, you've been around for a while, in and around advice. Yeah. Like, do you feel like within your networks there's less people starting their own businesses?
Yeah, I think so. I've only really known like a handful personally that have gone out on their own. Well, maybe when I started, there was probably more like one advisor companies. I feel like that's just not as common anymore. And I still just wonder how people are still doing it nowadays with all those additional costs.
You know me. I get very grumpy about lots of things that happen in this industry.
Yeah.
And I try and be as loud and annoying as possible about it. But like, I would love the advice community to just, first of all, understand. And this is a kind of a part of our conversation I'm interested in is as a business owner and a responsible manager of a license, I've tried not to burden the cost of CSLR onto our advisors, like onto yourself and the rest of the team.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it's not really anything to do with you. You don't pay the bill, like, and I never want anyone to feel burdened, like, are we going to not get paid? You know, we're not going to get a pay rise. Like, like, am I personally going to have to pay some of that because it is costing, like, I mean, you think about it as a business, you cost me $4,500 extra next year.
Yeah.
Like, it's not unreasonable as a business to go, well, you shouldn't get as big a pay rise because we should share that burden because the cost of having you as a team member is greater. Yeah. Now, that's not the way I'd think about it because I don't think those costs should be borne on myself. But that's why I don't think enough advisors are talking about it as much. Like, it's only really self-employed people who I'm seeing talking about this stuff.
Yeah.
Because this conversation, I think there's a lot of business owners like me. It's like, well, I'm not going to burden my team on this. Yeah. And so what do you think is the reasonable response as someone working in, you know, a business, as an advisor? Like, what should I be doing? Like, should I be communicating these costs and like when our PI renewal comes up, should I communicate what that's increased to? Or do you think I shouldn't? Like, it's a genuine question.
Yeah. Well, I guess you can. It's more about what happens, like, after you do disclose it. Like, is there an expectation? Does it make the other advisor feel, oh, geez, okay, as you just said before, okay, I'm not going to get as big of a pay rise this year because the costs have increased, which is not the best. Like, even previously in other practices I work for, I've never been privy to that information. So I don't know how much the change in costs has differed, like, from back then, maybe back in 2012, 2013 compared to now. So
yeah, and the reason why I asked the question is not because I'm not, just for anyone else listening, just to be clear, I'm not wanting to go, I need to share my burden.
Yeah.
Like, because boo-hoo me. Like, at the end of the day, like, who cares? And it's not about how do I share my burden because I'm stressed about this cost. Because as I said, I'm actually, like, selfishly think it ingrains my team to stay at Skye, and it means that there's more employees in the market. Like, it's actually better for me.
Yeah.
The reason why I say should I share that burden of information, I think every advisor in the market should be screaming about CSLR.
Yeah.
But most advisors in the market don't truly understand it. Even business owners I know, who I'm very close to, very switched on business owners, don't actually understand what is going on and why it's happening. Yeah. And the FAAA do an amazing job communicating. Like, they could not be communicating this frustration any more clearly.
It's through the FAAA that I originally found out about it, and I was like, what is this?
Yeah. And so it's two businesses that make up 92% of the cost, or something I read the other day, that is going to be borne by all small businesses. And therefore...
Yeah. And those businesses are still around. They've just taken on a different form.
Yeah. Ooh.
That really bugs me.
Yeah, I went on this big tangent the other day where, like, I went and looked at Evans and Partners' financial reports. I do this sometimes. I do look at listed companies' financial reports.
Yeah.
I don't know why I do it. If I'm sitting at home at night, like, on my computer, I'll be like, oh, let's look at these guys' financial reports. Like, I've done it with, like, Noble Oak. I've looked at their last 5 years of their financial reports to see how much does NEOS and PPS make of their revenue.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of interesting and worthwhile knowing how big a market share those retail providers make up for that one insurer. I'm a bit of a psychopath like that. And so I was looking at Evans and Partners and their financial year report and their AGM presentation, and how proud they were about retaining 3/4 of their client base, their Dixon clients, and were able to transfer that client base into Evans and Partners, and how proud they were as a part of their, like, look how good we are as a public company, we're doing great, and, you know, we're, you know, because a public company, you've got to kind of boast about yourself to keep your market share up, like, because your share price really matters. And so how boastful they were about, oh, we've retained most of our advisors, and, you know, 3/4 of our clients have come across, and they've just completely phoenixed this company, this licensee, and just said, we don't have to do it. I don't understand why the directors aren't personally liable for the cost that they've created. Drives me nuts.
Yeah.
I still don't understand. And I'd love... And I was talking to someone the other day and going, why doesn't professional indemnity cover this cost? Do you know the reason why?
Isn't it, like, limited, and like limited to a certain amount, but the amount of claims that they had was like exceeded it.
Yeah,
And so
exactly.
they just got out of it.
Yeah, I didn't even think about this. So, I mean,
Yeah.
the PI insurer, it was like a $20 million cap for the PI insurer. So once that got exceeded, there was another stupid amount of money collectively, like that meant that the PI insurer doesn't have to cover it, which again, I can understand why that makes sense. The PI insurer should have some limit on it.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's like, okay, all these other people need to be compensated. Someone else's problem now.
Yeah, and then and Evans and Partners share price got smashed because of it, and so they've delisted. So they don't need to. So they don't need to disclose anything anymore. They don't need to disclose anything to the market. Anytime a listed company has to make changes or do anything important, they have to disclose it. So so all of this stuff about Dixon, they had to disclose, and they were proud about the fact that they didn't have that liability. It's mind-boggling and frustrating.
Yeah, very frustrating.
But again, back to my point, I think that more advisors should be aware of CSLR.
Yes.
And I understand why I haven't communicated to our team about it. We don't actually know the costs as well, to be fair.
Yeah, we're just kind of projecting.
Yeah, and even ASIC levy, like that's gone up significantly over the last 3 years. But I haven't communicated it because at the end of the day, it's not your burden. But something like CSLR is just fundamentally unfair.
Yeah, that's probably why I've taken an interest in it, even though it's not a cost to me directly, is because I just think it's so unfair that all the other advisors, most of which are good, are paying for the bad advice that those two firms largely provided. And why should we be punished for what they did wrong? It's just...
Yeah, as much as we can get annoyed at the big institutions of the past, when they compensated, like CBA and Westpac and NAB, all of them compensated their clients to the order of like billions of dollars they paid out. Like, at least they funded it.
Yeah, at least they did. Yeah, I can give them that.
Yeah, we can get annoyed that they kind of trashed the profession for a while and did a whole bunch of shenanigans. Yeah, but at least they funded their own garbage.
Did. Yeah.
So again, I don't know the right way to do it as a profession. How do we get these costs that employees don't fund?
Yes.
How do we get the employees engaged in a way to? Again, I don't think politicians are incredibly passionate about fixing the problem.
No.
But
I saw they kicked the can down the road with the.
Yeah, Trent sent that the other day. He tried to fire me up. I was like, I will stay quiet. I won't go on a rant in front of everyone again. But it is one of these push and pulls that we need to do as a profession. Is how do we get everyone engaged in fighting these kind of frustrating injustices? Because yes, you don't pay for it personally. No. I don't pay for it personally either. The business does, but our clients will.
Yes,
we have to pass that on to our clients in some way, form or the other. Either lower the service, so our cost of service is cheaper, or we, charge a higher fee. This is the equation that every advice business needs to make. Yeah. Is it at the end of the day, consumers, we're wronged, advisors are going to get the bill, and the consumers are eventually going to have to pay for that bill because that's how it is.
That's the truth. It's not just actually the advisors footing the bill, it's everybody.
Yeah. Is there anything positive about the future, Kat? I've sat here and whinged a lot. Talk to me about positivities of the future of the advice profession.
I guess...
are you feeling positive?
I am still feeling positive because I do still feel there is a place for financial advice, and I guess... Well, it has been difficult over the last few years. Trying to move towards more of a profession is a positive. Definitely still feel like it has its place. It's just wanting to figure out how can we still grow as a profession and increase our professionalism, because that was the whole, enshrining the term of financial advisor and things like that, while still being able to serve more clients. How can we make advice more affordable? And the CSLR just goes against that. So it's kind of just that thing where I hope that it will eventually become more affordable for more people. So it's not just that can afford it that get advice. It's actually everyone that actually wants the advice can go get it.
Do you think financial advice as a profession is
Mm-hmm.
going to be better in 5 years than it is today?
I think so. Like the fact that I know some people will disagree, but the fact that we do have these education requirements now, it's not just a simple, what was it called back in the day, RG146 piece of paper. So I feel that the advice we'll be able to provide to clients will improve. So there will be better quality advisors in 5 years' time. It's just how many will there be? That's the balancing act as well.
Had a friend of mine call me up the other day. He's having a midlife crisis. Yeah. He works in sales. He works in solar sales.
Okay.
And he's a great salesperson.
Yeah.
And he calls me up and was like, what should I do? I want to move into sales. He's like, how did you get into your role? Because like you didn't go to uni for it. And I was like, well, when I did it, I only needed I only needed a diploma, I think, but did the advanced diploma or something. And then, but I said, I've done my master's, so you can call me Master Phil. Thank you very much. He's like, what, really? What are you talking about? And I was like, like you can't move from sales into financial advice. Like it's not possible. So it's interesting. If I had that conversation 10 years ago, it's like, come over. Like all arms open. Let's go. And so, but today it's like, mate, you got to do a post-grad. You got to do a year of your professional year. And he's on a good sales salary. I'm sure it won't surprise you. I asked all my friends how much money they make. So he's on a good sales salary, and it's like, don't come here. Like,
I'm not going to make that straight.
Yeah, like don't come over to advice because of the study requirements. Which I agree. I think I do fundamentally agree with you. Now, next question: do you think insurance only advice is in a better position in 5 years' time compared to today?
Again, because of the education standards, it would have to be, you would hope. But there's not just, clients can still, at the end of the day, they don't need to go to an insurance advisor. They can go to a broker that hasn't actually gone through these same financial advisor requirements, but they won't necessarily get the best, I can't say the best, but they may not get the most suitable policy for them because the broker might just be going for whatever pays the highest commission rather than which policy.
It's more self-selected in that. It's
like you're not actually looking at all the different insurers to see what they'll offer to the client and saying, okay, this one's the best one because they have less exclusion. Yeah. So general advice, they can do that. They can still pre-assess, they can talk about exclusions, but they can give factual information. Yeah.
But it's selected by the client, and it should be selected by the client because there can't be any influence on the product selection. So
they can't.
I agree with you. Getting personal advice is much, much better. Because someone's giving you advice, putting their reputation, putting their CSLR bill on the line, their professional indemnity bill on the line.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you gave me an answer. Will insurance advice be better in 5 years' time than it is today?
I'm hoping so. I just feel like there's a lot of changes that keep being introduced into about insurance. Like, what was the latest one? Changing the terms from stepped and level to variable age, stepped and variable, which is more confusing now. Thank you for me to explain.
Yeah.
And also, I'm hoping there's still not the talk of removing commissions completely. That would just...
I don't think so. I don't think insurers have seen the reduction of commission. Well, they've seen their new business sales drop, plummet.
Yeah, because the upfront's not as high anymore.
It's a reduction in commissions and it's education standards. The two major things that have influenced that. Education's not changing. If they were to reduce it, and it's not the insurers, it's regulators or government who does it.
APRA.
But the regulators aren't going to, or legislators aren't going to come in and go, it needs to go to zero because insurers will scream black and blue in the face that it can't be done. It shouldn't be done.
Yeah.
Because they won't have businesses. Like insurance companies will fall over if that happens. My opinion, I've had a big rant and whinge this whole episode, but my opinion is insurance advice will be so much better in 5 years' time than it is today. I worry about the ability for people to go and start businesses, and I believe as a business owner and one of the market leaders we are at Skye is it does. I'd fear that not having insurance will make us lazy, like fat and lazy. I think about that. When you don't have people coming in and innovating and being smarter than us, more tech focused than us, then it makes us go, well, do we really need to change? Like, and
competition's actually good.
Yeah, I think it's great.
Yeah.
And you know, as a team member who's been through many changes internally at Skye, you're probably excited about the fact that I'm less willing to change everything on a dime, potentially. Is that fair to say? I love it. Yeah, I think moving slower is easier for team members.
Can actually know
what the heck you're doing.
What day it is.
Yeah. But I do feel like, new entrants, new competition is so helpful. Like, you know, I think about Skye, you know, we went insurance only and we've grown significantly and got a good amount of market share. Not that we've done anything like significantly different to anyone else, but we've used a lot of technology that's more so than the majority in that space. And I think that kind of new energy, new blood in a old industry, insurance has been around for a gazillion years and will be forevermore. That's helped us in our business. And I want someone else to do that to us. And I feel like, I'm the old fuddy-duddy that doesn't move quick enough. And I want that feeling. But I do feel like it's going to be less likely to happen, unfortunately. And so I'm all in on insurance only. I think insurance only is the way to go. And I am seeing a bit of like competition come into the market, which is good. Yeah. But that competition's coming in more general advice space, which fundamentally hate. Absolutely hate. Not because of competition, but because I think it's illegal. But that's maybe I shouldn't put that on a podcast, but I still believe it. So awesome. Well, Kat, thank you so much for coming and being honest and candid. And one of the things I do appreciate about you being in our team is the candor in which you come. Like, you know, as I said, you know, I am your boss, and so you know, some people can be like, I better not say this, or I better be precious. But I appreciate you willing to kind of come on board and allow me to ask legitimate questions about how I should run the business and giving candid feedback. So I appreciate you coming.
Yeah, no problem.
Awesome. All right. Thank you very much.